then you have her in the Beautiful Joe world. And oh, by the way, you have, what is it, Axel, being the one that points out, Axel Zero, whoever it is, pointing out, hey, I thought you were with X. What the heck? I mean, seriously. Seriously, it's like, what was the point anyway? I mean, I think it would have been more better, in a sense, if you would have had the Sonic Boom cast in there, or if you would have taken Comedy Chip and Vitivius Beaver out, and at least put someone like Percy Echidna and someone else in the Sonic Boom universe that could be taken more seriously, alongside Styx, and there you go. It would have made more sense. But they didn't do that. They didn't do that. Now don't think I'm just ranting and hating on Styx. No, like I said, I like Styx. I think everybody does. She's funny, she's humorous, she's cool. But the thing is, the only reason she was here, along with two on and off characters that had no point of being there, was to represent the Boom comic and to add a little bit of that humor. It's like, okay, I understand that, but really, did you have to make her break the fourth freaking wall? Anyway, I'm sorry I went on that little tirade there. Again, I don't hate Styx. I like Styx. I like the character. I think she's funny. I really do. But just her insertion, the way it was, the potential to really make her something in this crossover was lost. That's what it was. That's all it was. I mean, it would have been better, like I said, if you would have had her insertion. Let me put it this way. Her insertion would have been a hell of a lot better if they would have taken out Comedy Chip and Vitivius Beaver and gave her someone like Percy Hedgehog and another character that could, like I said earlier, that could be taken more seriously as fighters instead of those two. And that's what kind of downplayed her addition, her add, or insertion, if you will, into this crossover. Now, again, that, as good as a character as Styx is, and as great and as funny as she is, there's no doubt about that, her insertion, the way it was, especially with the two characters she had, was one of the bad points. Because it would have been good if you would have given her maybe the Boom cast to go with, her fellow Boomers, or maybe someone like Percy or somebody else. I'm just saying. But that's not the only bad thing. One of the other bad things people saw was, and noticed, and I do agree on this, was the fact that the entire arc at times would be rushed. Now, like I said earlier, there were some breaks. There's no doubt about it. Things did slow down, maybe in Part 5 and all that, and that's fine. That's good. But a majority of the other times, where you would have a slowdown here and there in certain issues, you would have a rushed situation in others. Certain things would be pushed so fast, it's like, okay, well, what about this? What about that? Who's this? What's that? You know, you wouldn't have time to wonder, what's this? Why is that there? Who's this? Why they're here? What's going on? You know, things would be rushed. I mean, Ian Flynn even had Dr. Eggman joke about that in an issue of the crossover. And it's something that I think Archie Comics and Sega and Capcom, if they ever do another crossover, which I'll talk about later, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I should say, if they do another crossover, they should let the writers, the creative staff, take their time in making it good and not rush everything. Let things pace themselves out. And that's one thing this comic really didn't do as much. Yet, like I said, yes, Part 5 was a good example of pacing things out. But overall, at times, Even though you had moments like that in some of the issues, in all the other issues, or in other issues I should say, things weren't paced. They were just, just like that. Quick, 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 fast, fast, fast. Go, 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 go. And fans didn't like that. Fans really didn't like it. And then another thing as well was, as fans pointed out, now I didn't have a problem with it. I thought the artwork was good. I thought it was all right because you basically have different artists representing certain art styles, and basically the art styles, I should say, that they do for certain comics, for certain books. But that was one thing some fans would complain about, that the art style would sometimes work in certain issues, and in other issues they wouldn't, because they wouldn't work for certain characters in that issue. Like when somebody would do the Mega Man issue in the crossover, and they were drawing, I should say, the Sonic characters, they felt that the Sonic characters looked a little off, because they were being drawn in the style of a Mega Man-like style. Some felt that way, even though some would say, "Oh, no, actually, they look pretty good. The artist did actually a good job." Now that shows that some people did like the artwork, but some didn't. And that was one of the biggest complaints. Well, not one of the biggest complaints, but one of the littlest complaints that fans had was the fact that the artwork was different. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes certain art styles fit, sometimes certain art styles didn't. And that was one thing that really, in the eyes of some, kind of hurt the crossover a little bit, was that art style. Now, another thing though about the crossover, like I mentioned earlier, was the cast of characters from other franchises. We didn't really get an insert of these characters until at least around the end of the second act and into the third act. And it's like, why advertise these characters if you're just going to wait to bring them in towards the end? I mean, when one thinks about it, it's great to see all these characters from certain Capcom and Sega franchises fighting together along with the Sonic and Mega Man characters. But what was the point of bringing them in if you're just going to be like, okay, you're going to give, what did Flint Dille say in an interview he did for Transformers? Flint Dille, who used to work on Transformers and G.I. Joe, did an interview on the Rhino box set, I think. And he said that one of the things they always did when a new Transformer toy would come out, and they would have to add that character into the show, is that character or characters would always have to have a hero moment, if you will, or some kind of moment in the episode or episodes to not only introduce who they were, but kind of get people to want to buy that toy for their kids. And, and show what that character could do. And that's basically what it felt like with these with the characters of all these different gaming franchises from Sega and Capcom. That's what it felt like. That basically they were brought in, given their hero moments, and that was it. That's all it was. I mean, basically it's like every other time, you had a Sonic and Mega Man character go into one of the worlds of those gaming franchises and recruit the heroes and maybe even the villains, you would see them trashing one of the Mavericks, if you will, one of the ex-Mavericks, or one of the whatever they were, one of the Mavericks, if you will, one of Sigma's Mavericks. They would always be the heroes, or even the villains of that world, would be trashing the Maverick. Basically, that would be their hero moment, in a sense. Now, Street Fighter had their hero moment when they came to the rescue of everybody. I think, what was it? In Mega Man, I think, what was it? Mega Man 51, I believe. They had their hero moment there. So, I think that So I think that's basically one of the biggest problems fans had, was they liked the idea that you had all these gaming franchises together in this crossover, but you were bringing them in towards the end, and you're basically bringing them in to have their hero moments, and then towards the end of the crossover, you're allowing the villain Sigma to basically smack them around like they were nothing. Hold on for a sec. Okay, just checking something. But anyway, you were having the villain Sigma smack them around like they were nothing towards the end. It's like, what's the point? Just bring them in to have their hero moments here and there, and then allow the villain to smack them around towards the end in his third to final form? In his third evolution, his Sigma 3? It's like, again, if you're going to bring them in, give them more than just a hero moment and then a moment where they get smacked around. I mean, seriously. Seriously, I think that, in my honest opinion, was one of the biggest problems fans had and were concerned about. Especially when they saw that these characters weren't going to be introduced until at least the end of the second half and then end of the second act and into the third act. That's what basically they felt, that was basically the biggest concern, was you're just bringing them in to make it have hero moments, and then they're going to get smacked around. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And then on top of that, you have 275, which barely has any dialogue. And in my review, I basically said it's an issue that's more actions speak louder than words kind of issue. True, you had some dialogue in there from some of the characters. No doubt about that. No doubt about it. But a majority of it was action speaks louder than words. And there were some fans that weren't too thrilled about that. It's like, why? I mean, it's like, what's the point? Okay, basically it's like, what is the main thing about a comic book that you do when you read it, or when you get it? You read it. That's right, you read the comic. You know, you don't just open it up and like, ooh, there's a nice page, ooh, there's a nice page, ooh, there's a nice page. No, you buy a comic book, you read comics in the newspaper, and you do it because of the fact that you want to see what the characters are saying or thinking. You don't just open it up just to see action or just see pretty pictures. You do it because you want to see what's going on and you want to hear what the characters have to say or think. You don't read it just because, oh, you want to see pretty pictures, you want to see action. And that was the problem that some fans had with the issue before Mega Man 52 with Part 11. It was mostly more action than words. And sometimes, if done right, it could work. But for some odd reason, some fans looked at this and felt, this doesn't work. You know, it's like, what's the point? I mean, true, you had some cool moments in there, like I said in my review. You had some characters working side by side that normally you wouldn't think you'd see. But still, it's more like, you know, why give less dialogue and more action? I don't get it. I mean, look, being a wrestling fan, I can understand how nowadays fans want more wrestling than they want promos or they want talking. I mean, they don't want to have to deal with a 20-minute, 15-minute promo in the ring. No, they want wrestling right off the bat. Back-to-back-to-back matches. That's what they want. They don't want to constantly be dealing with something that has nothing to do with wrestling and it's mostly talking. It's not action. There's no action, if you will. So I can understand that from that perspective. But this is a comic book. And like I say, sometimes it does work. And those that felt that it didn't work here will agree on that. But I don't know what happened. All I can say is yes, it did have dialogue in it. Yes, it did have some good moments. But it was mostly an action speak louder than words issue. And it's something that, again, like I mentioned earlier in another part, that if they're going to do a third crossover, if they're going to make a trilogy out of this thing, then what they need to do is make sure that when you get to one of those climax issues, that if you're going to have mostly action in it, make sure you have a decent amount of dialogue as well. I'm just saying. Now, another thing that a lot of fans were mixed about was Xander Payne. Now here's a character that was introduced in the Mega Man comics. And I really don't know much about him except from what I've heard. And apparently what this guy was, according to what Mega Beatman said in his reviews, is he used to be on the side of good until he lost his eye during a fight against, I think against some of Wily's robot masters or something like that, I don't know. And because of that, he's vowed to take out all of technology. So, what role does Xander Payne play here? Well, Ian Flynn, I think, didn't really have much of a role for him. Or he did have a role, but, you know, not much. Because I think Ian mostly wanted to focus on the characters involved. But I guess the higher-ups or somebody at Archie said, look, we got to have a human element. And so Xander Payne was brought into the picture. And throughout, you always kept wondering, okay, what is he talking about? Destiny, destiny, destiny. And the way he's inserted into this crossover is it's kind of crazy. He escapes his cell through a portal that his eye opens all of a sudden. He follows it in because he hears or feels it's his destiny. He ends up saving the doctors and dragging them and bringing them over into Sky Patrol, where the doctors are let out of the brig in agreement to help the unified army fight Sigma. And then he escapes later on via his eye, gets the doctors again, ends up on Sky Patrol, and to do what? Basically fulfill his destiny, I guess you could say, by just using the doctors to override security system on the master engine. Also, he can use its energy to supercharge his eye, and I said this in my Mega Man 52 review, supercharge his eye to open a time portal into the past of X's world, basically to the very beginning of the crossover, use a gun that I guess a distracted Rotor and Tails gave to him because they thought he was somebody else, and thought he, thought he was somebody else, giving it to one of the robot masters. Uses the freaking gun to blast the holographic or virus, basically the Sigma Zero incarnation of Sigma in the head, and thus cause this whole crossover that we just went through for 12 issues to cease to be. And that's it. That's it. You basically had him use, you basically had this character and that's my dog, if you hear some panting. She just came in from the outside and sunning herself. But anyway, you have this character, if you will, that got introduced in Mega Man, introduced in Mega Man, and didn't really play much of a role till now, be the one that basically resets everything before the crossover begins, and thus basically wipes out what we just read for 12 issues, 3 Sonics, 3 Universe, 3 Booms, and 3 Mega Mans out of existence.